I learned to read in 11 hours, and people can't believe it. And if it wasn't on the documentary, a lot of documentary film is on the cutting room floor, but it was beginning to end. Tested before, tested after. Below grade 6 when I started, post-university 11 hours later. And it isn't magic. I spent the next 3 years cognitive science, brain analysis, everything I could get out of Stanford and Harvard, everything I could possibly do. Why did it work? What was I taught? Why did it happen for me? Why do I love reading? I'm not talking enjoying reading. I love reading. What switch went off? And that is when I say I kind of cracked the code on reading and how anyone can learn to read.
Welcome to the Soaring Child podcast, where parents of children with ADHD learn tips and tricks to help their child soar at home, at school, and in life. We feature interviews with experts, medical professionals, and parents just like you who are learning how to reduce ADHD symptoms using food and other natural strategies. Because children with ADHD deserve to soar just like every other child. I'm Dana Kay, your host. Hello, parents. This is Dana Kay here with another edition of the Soaring Child podcast. So I want you to imagine for a second. Imagine struggling to read your entire life. Being told that you're never going to amount to much. And then at like the age of 62, you finally unlock the ability to read. It kind of sounds like something out of a movie, but for today's guest, David Chalk, this is real life. David's journey is actually nothing short of extraordinary. Despite battling dyslexia, ADHD, and even prosopagnosia, I hope I pronounced that right, which is a rare condition affecting facial recognition, he went on to become an airline pilot at the age of 20, a successful entrepreneur by 23, and made his first million by 28. David's story is featured in the documentary, The Truth About Reading, where he sheds light on the literacy crisis affecting millions of children and adults. And now he's on a mission to change the way we approach reading through readingroad.io, which is an innovative program combining science and emotionally responsive AI to help children and adults learn to read in ways that truly stick. So if your child struggles with reading or learning differences, or if you've ever felt like, the odds were kind of stacked against them, this episode will offer hope. It'll offer practical tools for that transformation. David, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. That was a wonderful introduction. And what I would like to say right out of the gate for the parents who are listening is it isn't cast in stone. Your child has every possibility, and we'll talk about that today, and I'll make it clear. But the most important thing is just know that there's something magic inside of every child.
Thank you for starting with that. I mean, that statement alone is, enough to give hope to every family and every listener out there. I mean, your journey, David, it's truly inspiring. Can you just take me back to that moment you finally learned to read at the age of 62? What was like that experience for you?
We can thank COVID for that.
Oh,
I had struggled my entire life. I didn't really understand that I couldn't read. I thought life was difficult. And we can touch on my childhood if you want, because I know what these parents' children are going through, and I have some, I think, good insight for them. But at the age of 42, I went and got tested because I'd heard there was something called dyslexia and ADHD, which I'll plead ignorance of until then. I went and got tested, and the result of that was, David, how do you survive every day? And I was dumbfounded because I just thought that was life. And they told me, I think I had 22 cognitive conditions. The top of the list was dyslexia and ADHD, the prosopagnosia, which is the inability to recognize the human face. And that does tie into reading as well, too, in a unique way. And every other possible thing to any degree that you could imagine that could be tied into a learning difference or disability or neurodivergent mind. Uh, just before COVID started, I had had many successful companies, and, like many people, things happen, and I ran into financial difficulty. And that was partly to do with the reading, I will say.
Mhm.
Realize that I'm looking at contracts, not reading them properly. And COVID hit, and what I was doing at the time was mentoring young people in entrepreneurialism and companies that were existing, and speaking about learning disabilities on tour around North America. And obviously, all that went away with COVID. And I went,
Mhm.
okay, now what am I going to do? I'm 62 years old. I can't work for anyone. I've worked for myself, other than when I was 19 and I flew an airline, an aircraft. I've been on my own the entire time. And I had this thought that when they told me at 42, they said, you don't know how to read. And I go, well, of course, I think I know how to read. So I called a woman that I had met many years ago, and she said, David, it's sort of serendipitous of the universe. I know someone you need to talk to. And I go, I don't even know what I need to do. She goes, hang on. You talk to John Cochran. He is in California. He is probably the most significant person in learning disabilities and dyslexia and reading in North America. I had a call with him, and he too said, David, this is so serendipitous that you are connecting, because for 2 years we have been looking for, and I'll call it a victim, who is willing to go public that they don't know how to read at a proper comprehension level. I could struggle in reading. And you'll have to do it on camera in front of a Hollywood production crew that will film you step by step. And we believe there is a methodology out there that will have you read significantly better in a very short amount of time. So it was COVID. I didn't have any other option. It was a struggle to get out of Canada to get to the US. I had to get government approval for it.
Mhm.
I went down and I filmed it. Long story short, and this is what changed my entire life, and it is the reason I do what I do now. I learned to read in 11 hours, and
Wow.
people can't believe it. And if it wasn't on the documentary, a lot of documentary film is on the cutting room floor, but it was
Mhm.
beginning to end. Tested before, tested after. Below grade 6 when I started, post university 11 hours later. And it isn't magic. I spent the next 3 years cognitive science, brain analysis, everything I could get out of Stanford and Harvard, everything I could possibly do. Why did it work? What was I taught? Why did it happen for me? Why do I love reading? I'm not talking enjoying reading. I love reading. What switch went off? And that is when I say I kind of cracked the code on reading, and how anyone can learn to read. And that is far more than just the reading. It is a process that ADHD children and dyslexic children suffer from. And
Mm.
that's what I'm going to now share with the world. I'm happy to talk about it, but that's my
Yeah.
project. I'm going to teach the world to read.
David, I love it. And we need to know that secret. I think the whole world needs to know that secret.
I I'll share it.
The amount of power that that can bring to so many people, so many places across the world. So many children with ADHD, they struggle with reading. They struggle with the focus. From your experience, what do you believe makes the biggest difference in helping these kids overcome these obstacles?
Well, it may not be what you would think it would be. And it's the only reason I'm sort of here today, even alive and not living a terrible life, is the love of my mother.
Mm.
Unconditional love through all the difficult times at school, getting me through and telling me to get out of my own way, that school is challenging for some people, but you have every possibility out in front of you when you make it through. Let's just get you through school. That was it. The story of what happened to me in school and what happened after and what happened post reading are wonderful stories. But the only thing that matters is the parents' involvement with the child, having them believe that they can be something when the time is right, even if they're being told they're dumb, they're stupid, and all the things that were said to me, and that they couldn't concentrate and they didn't want to learn. I heard it all. But there's nothing that comes close to that. I was fortunate.
Wow. What What was your mum sharing with you? What were the things that made you feel that you could conquer the world? You know, I know there's a lot of parents listening that probably this resonates so deeply with them. And so,
It is everything.
sharing.
Whether I teach the world to read or not,
Mm,
they have the power in their hands to give a child a wonderful life. I think with my mom, she wasn't educated in any of this, but she just knew as a parent, because I have children now, they're 22 and 23, you know what they're capable of.
mm,
And you see when they go to school, things change from when it was before school to when they go into school. That life becomes challenging because they're put to task. They are divergent in their thinking, but it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with it. So for me, what my mom did was encourage me to do the things I loved. She would set up crafts in the home and on the weekends, in the morning, at night, we'd do things, we'd talk about things, we played games, anything to get my attention focused on doing something. And she could see that when I leaned into anything, I loved it. Of course, for ADHD and dyslexia, you get a story in your head stronger than anyone. It is a terrible beast to live with. And she helped me work on that. She didn't understand what being conscious or aware was, but she had me realize I was not the voice that was talking to me in my head, saying the horrific things that it repeated back. And even though that plagued me for many years, and I still hear it there, she separated me. She let me understand that if you hear a voice and you know you hear that voice talking to you, it can't be you because there's an observer listening to that voice. And over years of us just talking about it and me communicating with her and letting her see my joy without her ever judging me on anything. Even if something went wrong at school, she would know there was some other circumstance, that something provoked it. And she always gave me grace in everything, not letting me get away with anything, but always realizing that life was difficult for me. And that if she could add that one little extra thing, hugging, my God, I mean, there is something, I'm telling this factually. The reason you swaddle a baby in a blanket when it is born is to give it comfort. When you hug someone or when they say, I need a hug, there is a reason because oxytocin is released in the body. The fight or flight mechanism of the amygdala says we're safe. So there
mhm.
is magic. And she would just hug me and hold me and just say everything's going to be okay. And my body, I could just feel it. And all of the cortisol and adrenaline that was raging in me would just go away. And it only took like 30 seconds. So if there's one technique, hug your kids more than you ever could. It is magic what it does.
It definitely is magic. I can feel it myself when I get a hug, and I think that it is very, very powerful.
Real.
I want to dive into the reading aspect. Why do you think that the reading level in well, you're in Canada, so
It's the
I'm
same.
here in the
The same in
USA.
the US. I know all your stats.
You know all the stats. Okay, tell us the stats. I think let's
On
start
reading?
with the stats.
Okay, if
Yeah.
you're ready to hear it.
Yeah.
Right now in North America, because Canada is within 1 or 2%,
Yep.
54% of adults can't read above a grade 6 level.
54%.
That's around 150 million people.
Mm.
Um, About 40% of all adults can't read to their children, which is one of the most signifying facts about child's success in school is being read to in the home. Around 20 to 24% of all North Americans are illiterate, meaning a stop sign or a simple word they can possibly understand, but they suffer silently. Every year,
24.
um, about 1 million children graduate in the US and Canada, sub between grade 5 and grade 6 level reading, and ready to go into university. The statistics are terrible, and some of the worst ones are that incarceration, North America has the highest incarceration rate in the world. And yes, there are some people that may have had something in their life that has them turn to crime. But it's believed that over 80% are those children in school that were tormented and bullied, and they turn to crime because they didn't learn to read and they can't function in society. And the studies they do on convicts, nearly 80% of them can't read above a grade 3 level. So recidivism, meaning going back to jail after you are let out, is over 70% because they can't survive. So one of the things I'm doing with my reading, I'm going to provide it to every inmate in North America for free to help them rebuild their lives, and veterans and a lot of other people as well too. But the suffering, the economic suffering, the health suffering, and everything that goes with it, it started because of a lack of reading, but the pain and the torment that comes with not being able to read is the outfall. That is,
So it's kind of like this vicious
it's
cycle.
a vicious cycle. Yeah.
Yeah. So your initiative readingroad.io, it sounds incredible. I mean, this drive to change the reading in the free world, can you explain how it works and how AI, I know, look, AI is like this buzzword of today. How is this changing the way that we teach literacy to children and adults?
Well, there's a lot of parts to it,
I bet there is.
in doing it, but probably one thing I should say, that there's a lot of fear about AI, and it doesn't need to be that way. I've spent over 20 years in it, and it's only recently that it's come into the public eye, and it's only recently that I could use AI similar to what's here today because it's based on language called a large language model. And that is ChatGPT and Google and Facebook, all of theirs. So it is that technology modified. But let me just back up and tell you how it's done and why we can do it. For children, when they start to read, they have about a 50-50 chance of grasping it out of the gate. Because when the brain, from birth, we are half baked, you could call it, meaning that our brains are ready to be malleably changed, different to animals that are born able to walk and live life immediately. Us humans, first 3 years, we're dead if we don't have someone looking after us. So those years are important. But the years between about 4.5 and 7 to 8 years old, Plato even said it, give me a child until he's 8 and I will give you the man, that what happens there is when we go to school to learn, about 50% of people, reading goes to the occipital nerve in the back, the optical side of the reading. And those children begin to learn to read through MRI, which is magnetic resonance, putting the scanner on your head. We see that learning disabled children, dyslexic and ADHD, all have the same thing. The reading is processed by the frontal cortex right here. This is why parents with ADHD children, they are so frustrated when they learn to read and they get angry about it because the frontal cortex is our logic and our thinking and our reasoning. It is not meant to read. So when we start, we have no idea this is going on, but the child cannot flow through words. You have to go little by little. And that frontal cortex does not want to deal with it. But once you start there, until I tell you how I can solve it, there's no getting out of it. Pressure, pressure, pressure. Learn to read, do this, do your homework. Headaches, pain, frustration. You're not doing it the right way. So what happened to me in the program I took, which I reverse engineered, was the process by which they taught me so quickly was simply this. There are only 26 letters in the English language, and there's only 44 sounds. We can put a man on the moon. We can develop artificial intelligence. We can, save lives, but we've got 26 symbols and 44 sounds. And when you put those together in a code, you can read every word in the English language. So what happens in it, and this is what my AI will do, it doesn't teach reading. It teaches the relationship between sounds, which are called phonemes. Cat is not C-A-T, it's cat. And in there are C-A-T. Now, we don't use the sounds, we don't use the name of the letters, we use the sound. Well, in practice, if you think about it, if you were taught appropriately rapid pattern recognition of letters, turning into words, turning those into sentences, and not thinking about the reading, but just what is the word that is coming out of your mouth? How does it sound? And what symbols would you put on the page if you wanted to write it down? Well, reading is just lifting them off the page. If you can put it on the page, you can lift it off. So unfortunately, reading for all the last few hundred years has been taught the wrong way. You don't teach to read by looking at the words. You teach by learning the sounds you are saying and breaking them down. And that is the magic. Now, it can't be taught in the schools because it must be taught one-on-one with direct communication, immediate response to correct it if the child is not correct, empathy, compassion, love, understanding. It must be a fully encompassing, comfortable environment. I'm not saying the schools are harming children, but the fact that they cannot teach reading this way, the side effect by the end of grade 1, if a child hasn't started, what happens in the brain? A complete shutdown of the learning ability of the child. So we have a thing called dopamine, which flows for when we're enjoying something, but a very important one called acetylcholine is the receptor that has knowledge be absorbed by the brain. The moment a child shuts down or you force them to do something, those two shut off, and you may as well give up trying to teach them for the most part. So my AI does exactly what I said. It emulates a human, full communication, full cognitive understanding, emotional, facial recognition, everything. Make a long story short, it then guides the children, whether they are 4 or whether they're 40 or whether they're 60. It will pick them up at a point and take them through. Success would probably be in about, if my belief from the studies we have done, although we haven't built it all out yet, would be that someone 4 or 5 years old using this technology or any other one, I have no conflict with anyone else trying to develop it, by the time they enter grade 1, be reading at a grade 3 level. The litmus test for a child, if they're not reading at grade level by the end of grade 3, and many are at grade 1 or grade 2, over 50% of those children fall out and fail and unfortunately become those that are on welfare, health problems, and incarcerated. The statistics are there. You can look them up on the census. So my objective is certainly I'm going to help adults, anyone learn to read, but we will focus in the home before they ever go to school, have them reading, that when they go to school, it's a beautiful, happy experience.
David, it sounds like you are changing the world. And I want to just bring in something. So my son is 11, one of my sons, my other son's 15. My 11-year-old was a kindergarten COVID baby. Have
Oh,
you looked into any of this? I don't even know if any of the studies have been done. These children that were coming up and learning in their, the most important years for reading were doing it online.
yeah.
Have you seen the ramifications of
Oh,
that?
yeah. We're going to have a blip go through, and I hope your son will be okay. And there'll be, many methods of learning, but learning online is not what I'm advocating. Learning online was looking at a screen,
Mm-hmm.
having a teacher or
Yeah.
another child say something. The engagement was almost zero. There was no
Zero.
acetylcholine. There was
Mm-hmm.
certainly no dopamine flowing.
Mm-hmm.
And if people do not think that that is most important, well, what did my mom do for me? I learned the acetylcholine and the dopamine were there every time in my brain, and the hugging with the oxytocin, the
Mm-hmm.
ultimate learning environment. Learning through a computer on a Zoom call in a classroom is probably the worst thing that could have ever happened. And so many parents were aghast when they saw their child interacting and not being able to read because it was the first time a parent really went, oh my God, my son or daughter can't read. It was a
Yeah.
game changer.
Well, I know that it's definitely affected so many children, including my own son. I need to get my hands on this readingroad.io, and I can totally be one of your beta users for
We're going to give
sure.
it for free for everyone who signs up. It's still about a year away, as I've got
Yeah.
a big project developing. But it's readingroad.ai. I'm not trying to send anyone there
Yep.
because there is nothing there. You can put your name in to get it when it's available. But my objective in this is when it is there and people see the results, they will take the pressure off the education system
Mhm.
and know that even if the parent can't read properly, it will teach the parent to read. If the
Mhm.
parent can't speak English, it will do it from Spanish, it'll do it from Italian, and it'll hear the parent in that language, communicate to the child in English, and show the parent exactly what is going on with the child, and they can read and learn together. So I am putting the net over the entire thing and saying for those parents that are unable to read to their children, I'm now giving them that as well too, that they can participate in their learning.
Fabulous, fabulous. Look, David, in your opinion, what are some of, the biggest misconceptions parents and educators have about children who struggle with reading?
I did a podcast the other day with some school principals that definitely believe that a lot of children do not pay enough attention to it and they don't really want to do it. My
Mm-hmm.
God, I was probably the hardest working child in the classroom. I wanted to be a rocket scientist. I wanted to take on the world and do incredible things, but I wasn't able to do it. But the misconceptions are these, that no child ever starts out not wanting to learn. Reading is a pivot. That reading that starts in grade one is a delineation between those that are going to naturally be able to learn to read and those that can't. It's about 50-50. That's why I said 54% read below grade six. So once you even have a thought that your child is not reading properly, whether you get them tested for ADHD, dyslexia, or anything else, you have, and that's what my mom did. We didn't know. You have to support them. They are not going to be able to read. You could take them to a private tutor, but it doesn't work well because they're not teaching the methodology I just told you. They still teach you to memorize words on a page. So I'm not saying that you have to use the technology I'm going to deliver. I can't service the entire world. I'd love to, but I won't be able to. 100 companies could start. But what I am telling you is you must come from speech to print. And if parents want to investigate it, there's a lot online. I'm not inventing anything new. I'm just teaching it to the artificial intelligence to be the private tutor, to work with the parents and do it in the home. So, number one, the child does want to learn, but they get disenfranchised and disheartened by it the moment they can't keep up. Happened to me within the first 2 weeks of grade one. And from there, the bullying, the teasing. When I went to school, the strap, put in the corner, put in the hallway, beaten up. Every horrific thing that you could imagine happened to me as a child. Coming home was my sanctuary. Life was normal. I'd go back to school and it was hell. And it is possibly not that bad for children today, but no matter what degree, it's not healthy. And it doesn't matter if it's as bad as it was for me, even if they had 10% of it. How can a child go to school and not want to be there, but in their mind, they wish they could?
Mm.
So the moment the mind and brain shut down from learning in the classroom, the only thing left is the parent to help them.
Well, I think that, you've definitely shined the light on that journey. Your mum sounds like a wonderful human being. You've accomplished so much, outside of the traditional education pathway. What would you say to kids who feel like school just isn't designed for the way they learn?
I would say what my mom told me. The world is your possibility. When the education system comes to an end, your life begins. And to hang in, and yes, it will be painful. I can't hide the pain. It will be difficult to learn. But know that if you have a belief that you're going to be okay, that's 50% of it. That's what athletes and people who do sports, extreme sports, they believe they can do it. They can do a triple backflip when people say they can't do it only because they believe in it. So if I
Mm.
said anything to a child, as much as you feel the pain like I felt, and as difficult as it is, think to the future. You've got every possibility in the world. Make it through. Einstein, Edison, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Picasso. Every significant person in the world had difficulty reading because they were neurodivergent. The tests of, they've all been studied now. Those people made it through. I made it through pretty good, but millions get left behind. So for the parent, do all you can to support them. And for the child, I know it is painful, but look to the future, study people that have had these challenges and what happens to them when they believe they're going to make it through.
Believe that you can make it through. I love it. All right, I ask every guest this. If you could share just one small actionable tip that parents can start implementing today, what would it be?
I covered it already, and it's not reading and it's not the learning disabilities. It's let your child know that they are everything. And when they come through the door, hug them. When you say goodnight to them, let them feel your energy, that you are truly there for them. And if a parent can do that, the child knows that that's all I had going for me all through school.
Beautiful. I love it. Thank you, David, for sharing your heart and your soul and your powerful journey. Please tell listeners where they can, learn more about your upcoming software or learn more about your work or your follow your incredible initiatives.
Yeah, you know, I never do an interview like this to try and sell software or to get
Mhm.
people. It'll be there when I can get it done. If people want to get a hold of me, I do something that most people don't do. I give out my personal email address. And the reason for that, I've been able to help so many people, yet so many people never reach out because they don't think I'm going to answer. For those who do, they're shocked. So here it is. David Chalk is my name. My email address is david@chalkcorp, CORP.com. David@chalkcorp.com. There, if they want to ask me about learning disabilities, bringing up a child, the struggles that they go through, I'm happy to answer their questions. And I do them all myself.
Wonderful. And David, you shared just before we jumped onto this podcast that you're about to launch a podcast with your daughter, and I just loved the sounds of it. Can you share with our audience? And I know we didn't talk about sharing it with the audience, but I'd love you to share it with the audience.
This will be a first announcement of it. I have a daughter, Grace, who's 23 years old. When she was born, of course, I was concerned that it would be difficult. I have two children, Luke and Grace. They both did very well in school, but I spent so much time. I did everything I'm telling you. And I have a very close relationship with them. Every morning, as my daughter lives with me, she gets up, we sit on the couch together and we talk. We just have a conversation, things in her life, her friends, the world, work. We don't talk politics. We don't get into topics of controversy. We just talk about love and happiness. We talk very much about consciousness. And just before Christmas, she said, Dad, I've got an idea. And this is not something Grace I would have ever thought would have done. She goes, I want to start a podcast where we show the world what it can be like for family to communicate and connect and love each other. I want to call it I'll Ask My Dad. And with that, we are going to go out and just let people see how close you can be in this day and age with your children, just the normal things in life. And we're going to take questions. We're going to do it live. And so it's a big thing to bite off, but I give her credit for it. And it really warmed me to think that I was passing on something from my mom, that a 23-year-old girl would not be embarrassed to be with her dad on a camera to her friends. And so if there's any proof in the pudding to what I'm telling you, love your children so much, they will make it through.
Well, I'll ask my dad. I'll be tuning in. I love your message. I love everything that you're sharing. I can't wait to see you bring this software to the world. David, thank you once again for being here.
Oh, thank you. I love sharing it. I want to help as many people as I can.
Fabulous. Parents, if today's episode resonated with you, remember that it's never too late to unlock potential, whether it's for yourself or for your child. David's story is a reminder that resilience, belief, and the right tools, especially from your mom, can change everything. If you found this episode helpful, please subscribe to the podcast, share it with someone who might benefit, or leave us a review. Listeners, thank you for tuning into this week's episode of The Soaring Child. I'm Dana Kay, your ADHD health practitioner. Keep on thriving. Thank you for listening to the Soaring Child podcast today. To learn more about how to help your child with ADHD soar using natural strategies, visit our website at adhdthriveinstitute.com and follow us on social media at ADHD Thrive Institute.